Jesus tells us there will be a time of sorrows before his return. In Matthew 24:8, all these are the beginning of sorrows. And that's, he doesn't really elaborate it, just it's going to get bumpy, and then when it gets to tribulation time, it's going to go crazy, you know. So he was telling us about the end times when he would appear in the sky on a white horse, yay, all right, to save planet Earth, which is great news. Can't wait for that day. Matthew 24:6, you will hear of wars and rumors of wars, see that you are not troubled. Oh yeah, that's easy done, right? These things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Verse 7, a nation will rise against nation, a kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and pestilences and earthquakes. Notice there's been a lot of earthquakes.
Yeah, even in
Big
Arkansas.
ones. Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Wow. And in Luke, there's a verse that says, the waves roaring. And it's like, I think that's tsunamis. Because, on a windy day, waves are roaring. And my brother-in-law, my son-in-law was in Hawaii, and they sent me a photograph of him on a paddleboard. And the next day I heard that the waves, there were giant waves in California and in Hawaii. So I sent him a message back and said, looks like your paddleboard stirred up a bunch of big waves.
Yeah, really.
Anyhow, so nation will rise against nation, earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. So he said it, so he had something in mind. But he said, but the end is not yet. There's still a few more things to play out. Revelation tells us that before Armageddon ends, humanity will experience 3 colossal woes. Right? In Revelation 8:13, an angel saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth because of the trumpet of the 3 angels who are about to sound. So trumpets number 5, 6, and 7 are described by God as woe events, but notice this, the first 4 trumpets are not woes. So he's got 7 trumpets, he's got big events for 7 ways, 7 times, but he says the first 4, they're in a lower category. When we get to number 5, it even tells us that Satan is the king over trumpet number 5. And then Satan gives his power to the beast power, and the beast power sends out the 200 million man army in trumpet 6 and kills a third of mankind, what's left of mankind, right? And so there's a whole bunch of woe coming. And then Jesus says, well, I'm coming back to bring some woe too. So woe on the beast power's army, Armageddon. It's going to be, if you're not with Christ, there's going to be a lot of woe. Satan, like I say, creates trumpets 5 and 6. Jesus provides trumpet 7, the wrath of God. Jesus wants his servants to know what will be happening, but he does not want us to be troubled or frightened or alarmed, which it's like, don't be frightened. Oh, well, I'm glad you said that, So, that be not troubled could mean, frightened or alarmed. So there are other ways to translate that. The purpose of Revelation is stated in Revelation 1:3, and too quickly we read over it. Blessed is he who reads, which can mean to know accurately. Now, most of the people who read the book of Revelation, they mix it with their current traditions. When you die, you go to heaven. When you die, you go to hell and burn and roast and torment, right? And so they don't have foundational truths, which Revelation is like the capstone and ties all the prophecy and ties the whole truth system together, right? So blessed are those who read and know accurately, and those who hear. Okay, we use hear. You hear the music on the radio, or you hear a noise or a fire truck going by, right? It more means to understand, and almost nobody on the planet understands the Bible. It's written in, most of it's in plain English, and they go, well, it can't mean that because we know it means something the opposite, right? And somehow or other that's satisfying to them, and I'm going to heaven when I die. It's like, well, you're going to be real surprised and real disappointed on second resurrection day. You know, valley of dry bones, that's where you'll be. And then the third thing is, those who keep, i.e. hold fast, the things that are written in the book of Revelation. There are instructions in the book of Revelation, and that's why he's showing us what's going to happen. Because if we, you know, in the old days, it was like when the abomination of desolation happens, all right, it's on, right? That's the way I was taught in Worldwide. It's like, you know, there'll be famines in Oklahoma City and you know, whatever, right? And bulldozers in the street. But when the abomination happens, it's really coming down fast, you know. Well, Daniel gives us a whole bunch of stuff in the time of sorrows before that abomination and so on gets going. Jesus wants us to be blessed because we followed his instructions. And you know, if you're told to take the mark of the beast, the answer is no. We'll kill you. Okay. Because 1 second after you kill me, ta-da! You know, and you know, Gary, I mean, I think of Gary a lot, but Dale, I knew Dale was going downhill, and then I got the message, you know, that he had passed. And you know, I thought of all the good times back in history, and I saw some photographs, and you know, it's like, for Susan, this is really sad, and I lost a really good friend. That's sad, and I try to balance that with, he is on the launch pad, right? When we launch rockets up into space, they double, triple check everything, and it's sitting on the launch pad, and they're counting down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, you know, and then, you know, launch. And Gary, in my mind, is sitting on the launch pad, and Dale is sitting on the launch pad, and that scripture in Psalms, which, you know, I think catches a lot of people by surprise. It says, "Blessed in the sight of the Lord is the death of the saints." And it's like, well, it ain't blessed to us, you know. But in the sight of the Lord, nothing can occur now that they died faithful. They are frozen in time faithful, and they're just ready to go straight into the, you know, into the spirit universe, is what I call it. So I want to learn how not to be troubled in the days ahead, but sadness keeps becoming a major problem for me. And you know, 6 months ago I was listening to a whole bunch of news programs, and it was like every day the new news was worse than yesterday's news. And after a while it's like, I got to turn it off. I can't take any more of this. This is, you know, America is being shredded and ripped apart limb by limb and trashed, and I can't take it, you know. So I hate to see humans in pain. I hate to hear anybody's got cancer, because cancer's a terrible thing to go through, or suffering, or being tormented, or being slaughtered. Like in Ukraine, they're slaughtering people. In Israel, they're slaughtering people, or they, you know, I mean, and oh, in Chicago, it's like, oh, well, I do that every day. You know, it's like, yeah, but they're still slaughtering people, you know. So each day people are being killed in 2 major wars, Ukraine, right? So we're living in the beginning stages of World War III. I am 100% convinced of that. And, you know, if you look at Daniel 11:41, 2 and 3, it says, many Arab nations get captured. It says Israel gets entered by a superpower to protect them, like we entered Kuwait to get rid of the Iraqi army, right? And many ships, army, navy, military, wins the war, right? By capturing all the Arab nations. Well, look how many Arab nations are firing rockets today, right? Now, at first, they started aiming their rockets at Israel, right? And then they started aiming their rockets at American outposts throughout the Middle East, and then at American ships. and then just anybody's ships. It's like they are hell-bent on expanding this war. And how Yemen got so much fantastic weaponry down there. They got intercontinental ballistic missiles, apparently. They've got drone ships, right? Right? They apparently got a whole bunch of one-way drones that cost like $1,000 to build. It's like, man, I might build one of those myself. You know, but the whole thing, and the riots in the street in New York City and in Washington D.C. and Australia down at the Harbour Bridge, you know, in London, England, you know, hundreds of people turn out and they chant, you know, from the sea, from the river to the sea, which means get rid of the Jews and Israel and destroy it all. There's just a powerful movement going, and Iran is going, yeah, come on, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Well, if they keep moving, they're going to end up being captured with the other many Arab nations, because we're just in the early stages. And you know, in the old days when Israel had a war, it was like, yeah, they'll win and we'll settle down again. Yeah, they'll win and we'll settle down again. We're past that. Now we don't fight so much with tanks and planes, we fight with missiles. And anybody who can generate a whole bunch of missiles is going to win, right? And the Iron Dome can't stand more than a handful of missiles at any one time, right? And some of you might know the details, but they found out a couple of years ago that if they launched, like, I'm going to guess, 50 missiles all at once, the Iron Dome gets frazzled. It's like it's too many to deal with all at once. So there's a limit on the Iron Dome, which works great most of the time. But anyhow, so the vast number of Muslims want Israel destroyed, and I think Iran is saying, we'll do it, therefore we'll be the top of the mountain, you know, we'll please Allah better than anybody else will please Allah, therefore we'll be the leader of the Muslim world, right? And they're suicidal, so how do you deal with suicidal people? You know, they're crazy. So God seems to give the key to not being troubled in Hebrews 12:1. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin that easily ensnares us. Let us run the race with endurance, the race that is set before us. Each one of us has our race. Each of our races are different, totally different from anybody else's race, right? Dale's race was his race. Gary's race was his race. My race is my race, right? Each of us has a race set before us. Verse 2, looking unto Jesus, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross. It says despising the shame, and I looked that up. It can mean thinking little of the shame. You know, he was hanging naked on a stake and reaching for breath, and people were gawking at him and slinging, you know, if you're the Son of God, come down, you know. But he thought little of that because he was looking past that day and past the 3 days when he was be dead to the next day when he would be fully spirit being with the glory he had in years past. So in 4 more days, Jesus would be living in glory like he did before becoming human. John 17:5, he's talking to the Father, Father, glorify me together with yourself with the glory, right? It's a short little glory word. Oh, glory, you know. Well, when God says glory, oh, it's awesome, gigantic, right? And we just read glory, you know. So with the glory which I had with you before the world was. And Jesus was the creator. So he knew how to create planet Earth and Adam and Eve and everything else. Jesus endured and overcame by focusing on future joy. Now, you know, humans focus on, all right, Christmas joy. We went through Christmas, right? And people were singing jolly songs and buying gifts and doing all that crazy stuff. They were looking forward to Christmas. Christmas came and went, right? So, and we have a permanent, never-ending glory, joy to look forward in set before us. So faithful servants can overcome everything by focusing on the joy that is set before them. And the second fruit of the Spirit is joy. And God is saying, look, these are the things that are going to happen to you after this physical life is finished, right? And he's, in a sense, he's saying, I can't really describe it to you. First of all, you have to have a spirit brain to be able to understand and comprehend the awesomeness of it, right? But I'll give you a bunch to work with. So, question, why is Jesus wanting us to focus on our future joy? Answer, Hebrews 12:3. Consider him who endured hostilities from sinners against himself. Why? Lest you become weary. Anybody here ever become weary while they were in God's church? It's like, weary, right? And discouraged, right? Which can mean faint-hearted in your souls. Well, we know, back in worldwide days, a bunch of people became weary and faint-hearted, and they just quit the church. They said, oh, well, we're going to become a Sunday-keeping church. It's like, duh! You just threw everything out the window. What's the matter with you people? Well, they'd become weary. They weren't, the day before that guy got up and preached, they weren't studying and enjoying scriptures, and this is really good, and oh, I love this. And then he stood up and said, you don't really have to do it. And they went, I don't? Wow. I could go eat catfish. It's like, even just thinking, my sister eats octopus. And she sat next to me when I was in Australia. She ordered octopus, and I had to glance over there watching her eating octopus. And it's like, just thinking about now. Okay, moving on. People that we have known have become weary and discouraged and left God's church. But Jesus wants us victorious. Why? How? From focusing on the joy set before us. Right? So, John 15:11. These things have I spoken to you, that my joy, this is Jesus talking, my joy, the joy Jesus has. Now, his joy is way bigger and better than any of our joy, right? But he's saying, look at me, look at where I came from, look at what I went through, look at where I ended up, look at where I'm going to be when you see me next, right? So that my joy might remain in you, connected to you. And that your joy, so there's two kinds of joys here, right? That your joy might be full, right? Now, a woman has a baby, and she's in labor and pain and struggle, and then the baby is born, joy, right? And she forgets the past, and then starts thinking about having another baby. Not right away, right? But eventually. So, that your joy might be full. He wants our joy, our personal joy, to be full in a world full of sadness. Getting sadder by the day, right? So, anyhow, as this World War III, I call it, in the Middle East, as it expands, it's going to fire more rockets, kill more people, more American military soldiers, sailors are going to get hurt or injured or brain damaged, and we don't seem to respond in kind. It's like, what is the matter? Reagan blew up half their Navy. It's like, you mess with us, we'll just sink half your Navy. And then we'll consider sinking the other half later. And they shut up and sat down and went away. And they stopped doing their stupid stuff back then. John 16:24. Until now you have asked nothing in my name. Ask that you will, and you will receive that for the purpose of, that your joy may be full. So he's saying, here's all these scriptures in the Bible. You do this for the purpose of getting your joy full. Right? Okay, yeah, that sounds good. John 17:13, talking to the Father in the long prayer. But now I come to you, and these things I speak in the world, that they may have my joy fulfilled, or filled to the full, in themselves. So we can get ourselves in a state where our mind is so full of the mind of Jesus off the pages and the scriptures in the book, that we can sort of start tapping into and humming along with the joy Jesus had, right? I mean, we're not going to get 100%, but we can tune into it, So in Acts 2:28, this is quoting David, you have made me know the ways of life. you will make me full of joy in your presence. Well, okay, once we're in the presence of Jesus, forget anything I've said, right? It's like, first of all, you're going to have a spirit being brain to go with your spirit being body, right? I mean, most of us looking forward to the body, right? But I'm looking forward to having a spirit being brain that's way bigger and more able and capable of holding, learning and stuff, right? So when we see him face to face, right? I try to see him face to face through the scriptures, but there's still more to see. There's still more to see. In his presence, we are going to be filled with joy. We know that, what it means to fill up our cars' gas tanks. At least we do for now. Eventually we'll be plugging into electric things, right? But just about everybody in the room has either filled up a gas tank or seen somebody else fill up a gas tank. And we know that after we drive so many miles, we're on empty again, and we have to repeat the process, right? Okay, but that's easy, because you pull into a gas station, and as long as it'll take your card and it's not out of fuel or whatever, under normal circumstances, you get going and you do it, and you hardly think about it, and you drive off, right? But as you drive off, you see the gauge is like full. We got lots of miles to go here, right? So, but how do we fill up on joy to balance out the load of sadness that people keep sending our way, right? I mean, drive down the street, go to Walmart, it's like, you see people, shuffling along in wheelchairs, walking on walkers, and it's like, oh boy, I wish I could just heal them, but there's so many people that need healing. And it's, the whole thing is going downhill fast, right? So Jesus says, hungry people will get filled, right? In Matthew 5:6. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. Now, there's 2 billion Jesus following people who, if you had a questionnaire and sat down with them, they couldn't correctly answer what righteousness is. They might give you a short little answer, right? Doing good, whatever, right? But spell it, here we are on Saturday Sabbath. That's righteousness. God said, keep the Sabbath holy, right? That's right. You're doing one little righteous act by coming to Sabbath service and enjoying yourself, right? But what is all of the little things, everything God commanded is doing righteousness. And none of us do it all perfectly. None of us ever will. There was always more to do better and more to learn and more to grow into, right? So those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, they will be filled. But they have to be hungering. Now, when you're really hungry, what are you thinking about? Right? 23rd hour of the Day of Atonement. What are you thinking about? You're thinking about, I'm going to be eating in an hour. And Rick has got some really good stuff coming through the door. And I'm going to be drinking because I'm really thirsty too. So hungry people get busy solving the problem, right? They exert effort to find food, somehow or other. They search the refrigerator or whatever. Then they prepare food and then they eat food. So they go to the effort of solving the problem. Using God's Spirit, we can exert effort to find joyful items in the Bible, scriptures, and meditate on them so that we become mind-filled with joy, but we have to go get it. It's like God doesn't just put a funnel to our head and fill us with joy. Hey, Ian's getting real weary. Let's fill him up with joy. Right? It doesn't happen that way. We have to exert the effort. So he wants us to be mindful of our spiritual future. Right? And really, every day that we are staying faithful, we should count as a joy day. I didn't turn away from God. I'm on the, there's a song, or on the road to heaven, or on the way into the kingdom, or something, right? It's one more day, it's one more Sabbath, it's one more week that's passed, right? In Matthew 16:23, Jesus said to Peter, this had to be tough for Peter to hear, "Get behind me, Satan." And he didn't just say it to Peter privately. He didn't say, "Hey, psst, Peter, come here. You know, get behind me, Satan." He had all the disciples, and he spoke out loud, and he kind of almost pulled Peter into the middle of the circle and said, probably in a strong, stern voice, "Get behind me, Satan." And Peter, tough guy that he was, probably wanted to just melt right into the ground, right? "Oh no, my Lord just said, you know, you are an offense to me. You are not mindful of the things of God, but of the things of men," because Peter didn't want him to die. And it's like Jesus, it's tough enough for Jesus. He's saying, "I'm focusing on what I must accomplish in the next couple of days and where that leads to the glory in God's kingdom," right? And the fact that all human beings can have their sins forgiven if they repent and come to God, right? And Peter's saying, "It's never going to happen." It's like, slap you across the side of the face, Peter, right? So this is a great danger for all of God's servants. Our world is full of and overflowing with people who are dominantly mindful of the things of mankind. You're watching TV, I turn on my weather app, and they try to sell me 6 or 8 things that I'm supposed to fall in love with, you know, and it's like, I wait, there's a little tiny X in the top corner of the thing, but it doesn't show up right away. You kind of have to count it down. It's like, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, oh, there it is. Now I'm back to looking at the weather, right? I got rid of that, but I have to, it's like I can't make it go away until the X shows up, right? So Peter learned mindfulness from Jesus, and he still teaches it today. If you turn in your book of Peter, right, 2 Peter 3:2, he says that you might be mindful of the words. Well, where did he get this idea of be mindful? Jesus made him very mindful of being mindful, right? Of the words that were spoken before by the holy prophets and the commandment of us, the apostles of the Lord, because they were teaching the new covenant. Nobody knew about the new covenant until Jesus had died. This is my blood of the new covenant, right? And even the disciples were still like, so we can't talk to Gentiles, that's terrible. No, we're in the new covenant thing here. We're going to open this up to Gentiles too, right? So Jesus wants us to be mindful to bear much fruit. And second fruit of the Holy Spirit is joy. So he wants us to bear much joy, to generate much joy. We should be, when people come amongst us or when they meet us, they should get, they should get a feeling of joy, right? Well, how come you're calm and peaceful in this time of trouble, which is part of my problem. It's like I'm weighed down thinking of, oh, this went wrong, and this went wrong, and the government's doing this, and this went wrong, and the FBI and the CIA, and So John 15:5, he says, "He who abides in me bears much fruit. Without me you can do nothing." Verse 8, "By this the Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so you will be my disciples." So, a tree bears fruit, and grapevines bear fruit, and I don't see any bearing fruit here. It's not automatic. It's like it's a spiritual thing, and you have to make the effort to bear much fruit. So to bear much joy fruit, we must exert fruit-growing effort along the lines of joy. Now, there's peace, and we could talk about the other ones, but we're just focused on joy today. Galatians 5:22, fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, faithfulness. Does God force faithfulness on us, or do we develop our own faithfulness? And self-control. God does not do your self-control for you, right? That's totally up to you. So now it's time for a test of our joy-finding abilities. We all like to have a test, don't we? Yeah, sure. Okay, hands up if you have some favorite photographs in your cell phone, maybe snapshots of a grandchild or a fun event or a product you're building. Anybody got some favorite snapshots in their cell phones? Yeah, see? Couldn't have said that before they invented cell phones, but now we're good, right? So, do you feel joy when you show that photo to friends or to loved ones? It's like, let me show you. That's joy. But it's like, well, I've got a really joyous photograph here on my cell phone. See, but you don't go there. It's like, trust me, it's there. It's like not much joy in that, right? But sharing it, And Wilson said, did I say? I may have forgotten. Anyway, Wilson and Sherry wanted to be remembered to you all, and Wilson had gone up Wednesday and saw Susan on Thursday and drove home Friday. Boy, he's a lot younger than I am. But anyhow, he wanted to be remembered to you all, and hopes to see you someday. and have you seen him in the last year or two? Did he come by?
He came and spoke.
He did come and speak. Yeah.
He was coming through to go up to
Branson. Yeah. His grandson is up there, and he loves to go to Branson and see his grandson. And he sends me photographs of him and his grandson. And then that's his joy, sent through texting, whatever, through the airwaves. And then I open mine and I see, there he is, he's smiling, look, this is happy. And I get joy out of seeing him having his joy in a photograph. So we make the effort, right? And at the funeral, apparently Wilson sent me some photographs, and at the funeral memorial or whatever it was, they had pictures of Dale at the feast, and Dale doing all kinds of things Dale used to do, and it just brought back so many good memories just looking at the photograph. So so the Father is glorified when we bear much fruit, right? So we take. In fact, I tell my kids now, when they're going to go somewhere special, I say, be sure and send me photographs, text me photographs, right? And then I put subtitles under them and send them back to them. They enjoy that most of the time, right? So God provides us with Bible snapshots. They're in word. They're snapshots in words, not photographs, right? But to balance out the sadness that we have in life, and He knows we're going to have sadness. And He's told us the time of sorrows, which I believe is upon us, right? World War II was a time of sorrow, obviously, for a lot of people, but it wasn't the end times then. We've now entered this end times period, and He's saying, I want you to know these sorrows are coming so that you can plan and prepare on how to deal with it and not be surprised. And very few people, I've heard very few people preach on the first day of the morning and evening sacrifices. The first day. Now, Jesus speaks of the last day, when the abomination stops the morning and evening sacrifices. But on day one, when they start, it's like, look out! We're on a countdown to the abomination of desolation. When that kicks in, what is going to break loose, and we're going to be in the tribulation in no time flat. So here are some Bible snapshots for us to meditate on and balance out our sadness with godly joy. Revelation 19:11. Now I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. And I saw this down in Wilson's church, or the church where he goes. They had a huge big pin board for trumpets one year, and the kids had made little and little horses, and they sort of filled it, and then there was a big white horse leading them, right? And it was like a kid's view of the sky full of white horses. I can still picture it in my head. It's like, woo, But like if he just said Jesus is coming in a spaceship, I wonder what that looks like, right? or Jesus is just going to suddenly appear. Right? I mean, you can't snapshot into your brain. But the white horses, right? And I just found a scripture the other day. When the sky opens up, you see the Father sitting on the throne, and then that verse says, "And the Lamb of God." But another verse somewhere else says, "And you will see me sitting next to the Father on the throne." So apparently when that sky opens up, the view from earth is two people sitting on the throne, and it doesn't say, but apparently Jesus gets up off the throne, walks over to his horse, right, and says, "Gee up, let's go." What do you say to a horse? I don't know. Giddy up. There you go. Yeah. Giddy up. Let's go. Angels. Oh, ho, forward. Right? And it's like, for you and I, when our physical, if we see it with physical eyes, it's going to be dark. The moon is going to be blood. The stars are going to fall from heaven like a meteor shower. Right? And we'll hear noise, and it'll be like, what's going on out there? And we step out the door. We look up, and it's like, white horses, and there might only be a couple of seconds between you saying white horses and you is on a white horse, and you is on your way to meet Jesus in the clouds, right? So it's a fabulous future snapshot of joy, but you got to make the effort to wrap your brain around it a little bit and savor it. Like, put your favorite music on, right? A turntable. Nobody does turntables anymore. But anyhow, you put your earbuds in and you dial up your favorite music, right? And then you joy in the music. So everything will become joyful when God's faithful servants see the white horse and know what it means. Because all the world around us, they're not keeping White Horse Day, right? Feast of Trumpets, right? They're not being reminded of the snapshot day after day. And they're constantly told, when you die, you go to heaven, right? And you don't have to come back. It's like you stay in heaven, right? Except there's that, resurrection thing, and they're kind of twisted around on that, right? As long as they didn't go to hell, they're going to be happy, right? Because they don't want to go to hell. That's not a fun place. See, and in that case, it's a fear snapshot that's been created for them, that you better love Jesus, get baptized, or give your heart to the Lord, or whatever you're going to do now, before you die tomorrow in a car crash, teenager, right? So, but there's so much is wrong and so much is beautiful if you just take the words in the book the way he wrote it, right? Matthew 24:31. He will send his angels with great sound of a trumpet. So it's going to be noisy, right? And they will gather his elect together from the four winds, everywhere, all over the earth. Gary from up on the mountain and his wife, Dale from up in Springfield. He's going to gather the people who have gone before us, and maybe me, or depends how long we got, right? And gather them together into the clouds, and we know the angels got white horses. We know Jesus has got a white horse, and then we don't exactly know what happens to the white horses when everybody gets to the clouds, right? But it'd be kind of fun if we all rode white horses down to the Mount of Olives. Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah, that'd be great. So. Anyhow, I brought a science project, and let's don't do this at home because it could be dangerous. But I like pictorial demonstrations of what it is I'm talking about, and we have a world just full of sadness. And if you turn on the radio or the TV, you look out the window, you go to Walmart, you're going to see sadness. And you can just immune yourself to sadness and say, well, no sadness for me, right? But if you've got a kind, gentle heart of Jesus Christ, you want to change the world, right? And so it's, in my case, I was just soaking up so much sadness that it's like I'm tilted, I'm out of balance. And so I thought, well, what we got to do here is we got to find snapshots, and we got to add some joy to and we got to get more joy, working for us. And so we just keep adding joy until joy gets the strongest thing. Joy is stronger than the sadness. In Dale's case, every time I'm reminded of Dale suffered, Dale died, Susan suffering with no Dale, right? I try and tilt it back the other way, and I go, Dale's ready to launch. Nothing can stop Dale, right? And Gary and many, many others. So but I have to make the effort. I have to go find the joy. I have to, and the white horse is just, that's one of my favorites, because, who doesn't love a white horse? I mean, come on, right? Didn't Washington ride a white horse? All the Indians were trying to kill him, and they put bullet holes in his clothes, and he kept on riding the white horse. And the Indians are going, what's the matter with my gun here? Anyhow, so, but we have to work at going and getting the joy, right? Otherwise, right, you can fall into depression. In this day and age, loads of people are falling into depression, and they're not working on this idea of, I am really sad today. I've got to make an effort to get some joy going. Now, when we come together in a room like this on the Sabbath, just seeing each other's face brings joy. And then, talking about Rick and his snowmobile Jeep, and we get joy bouncing things back and forth off each other, working together, talking together, praying together, right? So the Sabbath is like a joy fest. It's come on, get together and sing praises and talk about God. But it's not automatic like cruise control, right? I love cruise control. I can't live without cruise control. And I think cruise control saves my life a lot of times, and me getting tickets too, right? But it's like, okay, what's the speed limit? 75. All right, right? And then off we go. All I have to do is keep pointing this thing in the safe place, and watching out for the 85 and 95 mile an hour people coming up behind me, right? So I need to spend more time focusing on the joy that is set ahead of me, right? Which is why 1 Corinthians 15, this mortal shall put on immortality, that whole chapter there talking about, here we are, we're made of the dust, but we're going to made of the heavenly, and focus on that joy that's okay, in my mind, and you don't have to believe any of this, in my mind, 10 years, and where Jesus is on the planet, ruling the planet. I think that's how close we are, right? And all right, so 15 or 20, I could be wrong. Or it could be 5, right? 5's kind of really rushing it, but, because we've got to fit 3.5 years of tribulation in there, and we definitely haven't started that, right? But it only takes, from the abomination day, it only takes 30 more days and you're in the tribulation. And the morning and evening sacrifices, and I was going to ask you all, what do you think might cause the Jews to start sacrifices? What?
The war.
Well, not during the war, because they're busy. Right? I mean,
Thanking God.
yeah, once the war is stopped, once the missiles stop coming in, right? Once all the Arab nations are captured, no more war. So, how long does it take to capture all those Arab nations? Well, it depends who's doing it, right? And depends what's the provocation that causes somebody to want to do that, right? And I personally, I'd love to go down there to Yemen and capture them right now. They got way too many nasty weapons there, and they're just shooting them off like every place. Anyhow, so
They've already got the 5 red heifers.
What they don't have is permission from the government. They've tried to do this years and years and years, and the government will not let them get anywhere near the Temple Mount, right? Because it'll start a war with 1.4 billion Muslims who claim the whole thing is Muslim territory, and you don't dare start sacrificing to the Old Testament, Jesus, to Jesus and God and all that. because you're supposed to worship and serve Allah, right? It doesn't exist. Whoops, I get in trouble for that. Whatever, I don't care. Right, so for a little time, I'm filled with God provided joy. Paul shows what will happen after we are gathered together in the clouds. 1 Thessalonians 4:17. We who are alive, he thought he'd still be alive, in the flesh when Jesus, he was real hopeful that Jesus would get there in a hurry, right? But as time gets on, the actual day of the white horses gets closer and closer. And at some point, somebody will be preaching, and I hope I'm not wrong, but they'll be preaching within the next 10 years, right? And if it's 5 years, yippee! Get it over and done with. Thy kingdom come, get it here quick, right? So, to meet the Lord with the air, and thus shall we always be with the Lord. I want to be always with my spirit body, with his spirit body, to where I can talk to him and ask him questions, right? Because there's no more fabulous person that is described in history or in books or in any way than Jesus, because God the Father is equally more fabulous and greater. It's just that we don't have what the Father did when it rained or when it snowed or when, life circumstances of what Jesus said to people when things happen, right? But just, if you're with Jesus, you're with the Father anyhow, so you get a combined package there. And not only will I'm looking forward to me being with the Lord, I'm looking forward to you being with the Lord with me, right? And instead of us, struggling along in these physical, fleshly, getting older bodies, right, painful bodies, right? We're just going to be happy people, and not on drugs. We're just going to be spiritually happy people, right? 1 Thessalonians 4:18. Therefore, comfort. Okay, I looked up comfort one another, right? Comfort can also, Strong's Concordance, can be call near. Okay, call near one another with these words, or call for one another with these words. It's like, make the effort to bring this into mindfulness. These are godly joy snapshots given for us to add more joy to our lives. Revelation 2:11. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He who overcomes will not be hurt by the second death. Right? Which is like, what's joyful about that? It's like, well, there will be a whole bunch of people who go into the second death, dead forever, never ever have life again. It's sad, but it's going to happen because God said it's going to happen, right? And there are people who just, ain't no way God's going to tell me what to do, right? And you can see that in a 2-year-old. Ain't no way anybody's going to tell me what to do, right? But there's pain, and after some pain, right, or not having food, and not getting your cell phone soon enough, whatever, right? You learn to fit in with the system. Anyhow, these are godly snapshots, right? So we can add more joy, and Paul shows the opposite of the second death in 1 Corinthians 15:54, and he says, okay, when I read this, typing it out, so when this corruptible, and I said, oh, hold on a minute, politicians are corruptible. I'm not corruptible. The politicians, they're corruptible, right? So I looked up the other word, perishing. Okay. I admit I am perishing. I am running downhill. I am slower and slower and slower as I get out of bed each morning, and it takes long to get things done. Has put on incorruption, right? And this mortal is put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying is written. Death is swallowed up in victory, right? And the second death is not swallowed up in victory. Second death people are dead, never come alive again, non-existent, not memorable, not nothing, just nowhere, right? So second death, you don't want to go anywhere near the second death. You want to be in the first resurrection. A super powerful snapshot for me is Revelation 3:21. He who overcomes, I will grant to sit with me on my throne, as I have overcome and sat down with my Father on his throne. Now, I have I like to draw things out, or I like to see photographs, or I like to build models or something, right? So I can see what it is I'm thinking about. And with this one here, I picture a throne longer than a freight train, right? It's like, I know, they don't make thrones like that, but I'm picturing a throne like longer than a freight train with you and you and you and me, and in the middle is Jesus, and here are all these thousands and thousands of faithful saints sitting with Jesus on his throne. And it's like, it just doesn't seem to fit, you know. So I'm trying to take that snapshot and move it over to the New Jerusalem. Anybody know how big the New Jerusalem is? It's 1,500. Who?
1,500 miles high,
Fif-
1,500 miles.
It's a cube, 1,500 miles in all directions.
I don't know how many cubic feet that per. That's a lot of area.
Yeah.
Very big.
Anyhow, one of the verses says, I will make you a pillar in the temple of my God. Right? Pillars hold things up. They support roofs or upper floors or whatever. So I'm trying to go, okay, the throne of the Father and the throne of Jesus are inside this New Jerusalem someplace. And we're in there on, throne just means rulership in one sense, right? It's like the rulership comes from the guy sitting or the person sitting on the throne, right? So I'm trying to, but it's like, sit with me. Oh yeah, me and Jesus. Here we are, elbow to elbow. It's like, oh wait, don't forget all the other brethren. It's like elbows and elbows and elbows. It could be a big circle, right? But how big a circle? You wouldn't be able to see the other end of the circle, right? But overcomers are going to be spiritual royal children of God Almighty, the Father, for all eternity. Children of God. Right? Royal children of God. That's what they have said. That's what they are planning. That's a snapshot that we can look to. If we meditate on this next verse, we can see mountains of joy from what it pictures. Revelation 25, verse 5. The rest of the dead did not live again until the 1,000 years were finished. Okay, so what's so wonderful about that? Our loved ones, right? My mother, my brother, my sister, people that I have known, and I don't talk to my mother anymore, but my brother and my sister, I talk to them in Australia, and I listen to their woes and worries and their troubles and what they think and, whatever, right? and I just so wish that I could sort of put this on my cell phone and pour the truth in and have it splash out all over them and then go, oh, so that's the truth, but that they're stuck in tradition, or they're too old to learn new stuff, or whatever it is, and they're getting really old. They're all older than me, and I'm really old. So, our loved ones who have lived and died without Christ will live again, and in a perfect world, because 1,000 years of Jesus controlling and teaching and learning, how gorgeous, how beautiful is planet Earth going to be after 1,000 years of continual improvement under Jesus' guidance, right? And then, poof, here come the dry bones, right? And just where are we going to put all those people, right? But Jesus will have a plan. We'll have 1,000 years to figure out the plan, right? And I want to be there, eyeball to eyeball, with my mother and my brother, who I've had multiple discussions with him, and it's like, you can't pose to his brain that Sunday is not the right day. You can't get that across, right? And it's like, Jesus is a sweetie and it doesn't matter about the details. It's like, yes, it does matter about the details. You've got to focus on the details. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to, working with people that I can't get to work with now, right? So I can't wait to show God's truth to my mother, my brother, my sisters, not to mention all the people that I will be working with for 1,000 years, who will have lived through the tribulation and the battle of Armageddon and maybe Egypt are not getting rain for the first year or two, right? It's like that. I got, if I'm sent over to Egypt, I'm going to be grinning. So, hey, it's the 11th month and you haven't had any rain. What do you think? What do you think? You want to go? You want to go again? We can roll the dice here. We can go again if you want, right? Because next time it'll be 13 months. Because I'm here a month early, and if you don't come, then you still have no rain for this month. Then you have another year. So it's like, oh, you think we're going to the Feast of Tabernacles, right? So Revelation 5:10 has made us kings and priests to our God, and we shall reign on earth. It's like you're going to be kings, or if you want to call yourself a queen, that's whatever, right? But you're going to be in authority, kind of like Trump was in authority over America, and made things happen the way he wanted to make them happen as much as he could under the circumstances, right? So some more joy set before us, snapshots. Revelation 20 verse 6, blessed and holy is he who has part in the first resurrection. They should be priests of God and Christ and reign with him 1,000 years. And just like the disciples sat around Jesus at campfires at night, and Jesus would point out to them things of the universe and things that are planned and what happened before time began, and wow, we're going to be able to sit with Jesus and hear him talk at the Feast of Tabernacles and all throughout the year. Right? A year won't mean anything to you, right? A year means a lot to me now. Every time I turn another birthday over, it's like, But anyhow, Revelation 19:7, let us be glad and rejoice. Now, we need to tap into this now, right? Yes, it's going to happen then, but it's so certain that it is going to happen then that we can tap into its certainty now. We can read these verses. We can have some of these verses memorized and go to them, rejoice, and give him glory, for the marriage lamb of the Lamb has come, and his wife has made herself ready, or is making herself ready. Right? And that's joyous. Throughout 2,000 years and today and tomorrow, there are faithful servants of Jesus Christ keeping Sabbath and just serving Christ, and day by day making themselves ready for that glorious moment. Now, humans have tried to describe what the marriage of supper of the Lamb with Jesus is like. and ladies, don't throw anything, right? Ladies kind of have a desire to design the perfect wedding, right? And guys just wish they could just sit on the couch, hand over the ring, and say, we're married, right? We're done. Let's get on with it, right? But in the spirit world, it doesn't take a lot of time to achieve great things. It's like, so it can happen in a hurry. Revelation 19:8, to her was granted to be arrayed in fine linen, for the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. The faithful are using effort to do righteous acts. And I would add to that, the faithful need to be making effort to draw joy out of the scriptures, off the faces of the brethren, off the, close off the world for a second and time travel yourself to the White Horse Day, or to the feet touch the Mount of Olives Day, which is pretty much the same day, right? Or to the marriage supper of the Lamb, whenever that's going to be, right? or visiting the Egyptians and saying, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, God is a fun God. He just doesn't want people thinking he's a jokester, because he's not a jokester. He's in this for real, right? Mark 13:7. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, don't be troubled, for such things must happen. It's going to happen. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. When it happens, you should say, praise God. He said it was going to happen. It just happened. Right? When Egypt gets captured, right? Nobody on the planet, right? Except a handful of crazy people that listen to me, think Egypt is going to get captured. It's just nobody's thinking about that. But the day is coming, and not too far away, when Egypt will get captured along with the other Arab nations. And on that day, I'm going to call all my friends, quick, turn to Daniel 11:30-41. Egypt gets captured. It just happened. Jesus, God did it. They said it 2,500 years ago. They just did it. Now look at verse 44. They're going to do that too, you know. John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, says Jesus. My peace I give to you. Do we have the peace Jesus had? It's like how unbelievable how much peace he had walking the earth in the flesh, bumping against crazy human beings left, right, and center, and then having them spit on him. He created them, having them spit on him and crucify him and slur him, you know. And to this day, for 2,000 years, you know, on the golf courses, people use Jesus' name the wrong way all the time, right? So, my peace I leave with you, not as the world gives peace, right? And it's like, if you told a friend, you need to go home and pour a bubble bath and light some candles and put on your favorite music, you know, and have some peace. Not as the world gives peace. Let not your heart be troubled, neither be afraid. Right? And it's like, but Jesus, no, don't be troubled and don't be afraid. I got this. And I'm showing you in Revelation, I'm showing you in prophecy, I got this one, Egypt captured. I got this one. I got this one. I got the sacrifices begin. I got the sacrifices end. I got the abomination. I've got the 30-day war that destroys Israel. I've got the tribulation. It's all mapped out. It's all according to plan. Nobody in heaven is running around saying, "Oh, something went wrong," right? and White Horse Day is on the schedule. And you know, some of us might get there early, like Gary or Dale, and other of us might actually be there in the flesh and start rising up and then become spirit being, have a couple of feet off the ground, whatever, however that works, right? So, question, how does a person have a mind full of golf or NASCAR racing? How do you fill your mind with either one of those?
Watch them all the time.
You what?
Watching them.
You
or
watch
doing all
them,
the time.
you know who won, who got par, second par, 2 under, whatever, birdie, you know, right? Or the NASCAR, who the greatest NASCAR driver is, you know. But we pour time into stuff that we love, right? Well, that's what I'm saying here. Galatians 5:22, fruit of the Spirit, you know those. Question, do we self-produce the fruits of the Spirit? It's really kind of a weird question, because there's only one answer, right? It's not this is how you get the fruit of the Spirit. It's like you self-produce it. You apply your mind to the Scriptures, you learn what to do, what not to do, and kindness, you make an effort to be kind to people, or goodness, or faithfulness, or gentleness, or self-control. You know, self-control is a real pain, because as soon as you wake up in the morning, you've got to deal with it, right? You know. So, Paul had a really tough time in his life, and he was mindful of focusing on filling up with joy. 2 Corinthians 5:4. My great boasting on your behalf, I am filled with comfort, I am exceedingly joyful in all our tribulation. It's like, oh, Paul, that's just poetry. No, he felt it down to his toenails, right? And he had an eye problem, and he prayed to God and said, please heal. I've been healing other people. Can you please heal me? I got to walk these rocky roads from place to place, and you know, and I trip over, or I don't see things, or I could see better if you would heal my eyes. And Jesus told him, I can't. You know, you're already on the edge of being too proud of everything you already know. I can't run the risk. And Paul said, oh, hallelujah, thank you for giving me that answer. I'm just going to be so happy with my eyesight problem. You know, it's like, he felt this. And, you know, he'd talk to Jesus eyeball to eyeball, the shiny, shimmering white Jesus. And here's this Paul that had been blind for 3 days, right? And killing Jesus' people, right? And Jesus said, now, Paul, listen closely. Yes, Lord, yes, Lord. Whatever you say, Lord. You know, so that kept him going for a long time. 2 Timothy 1:4, greatly desiring to see you that I might be filled with joy. Coming here fills me with joy, right? It's just I can't get here all the time because of the weather you have up here, right? So, yeah. So just as we make an effort to fill our cars with gasoline, we're also responsible for filling our minds with the joy that is set before us. And we should be telling other people about the joy that we see that is set before us. And if they go, well, you're nutty, you're crazy, the end of the world is coming. It's like, yeah, well, that's what they say on TV. World War III is nuclear war, Armageddon, everybody's blown off the planet and everybody's dead, right? So the end of the world is coming. Obviously, it's coming. But it's just the end of the age. And the new world is when the age of Jesus ruling the planet starts, and whoop, things are going to be great after that. Peter understood abundant spiritual joy that we can tap into. 1 Peter 1:8, having not seen Jesus, you love. We love Jesus, and none of us, none of us, I haven't. None of us that I know of have seen Jesus, right? Paul saw Jesus, but none of us. But now you do not see him, yet believing you rejoice with joy inexpressible and full of glory, right? In your mind's eye, you see Jesus. You see the plan. You see the teachings. You see, and in my eye, I'm seeing Egypt captured. I am seeing many Arab nations captured. I'm seeing verse 44. I'm seeing the abomination. I'm seeing, they're all just lined up like dominoes. And the first one is falling now. We've started World War III. It's going to get bigger and bigger. And pretty much ends for Israel the first time when all the Arab nations are captured and they stop firing missiles at Israel. Hallelujah. Let's start the morning and evening sacrifices, right? So, okay. But rejoice to the extent that you partake of Christ's sufferings. Anybody like sufferings? That's sad. That suffering stuff is sad, right? Sufferings, that when his glory is revealed, you may be glad with exceeding joy in the future, but you can bring the future into your brain and be mindful of today and tomorrow and so on. When we see Jesus, our new bodies will experience spiritual joy beyond what we can feel in these flesh bodies, right? Think of your greatest, most joyous moment you've ever experienced in all of your lifetime. It's nothing compared to what's coming, right? It's big joy is coming. Until that day, we must do the work of finding joyous snapshots and filling our minds with the awesome joy that is set before us.